Hey guys, it's Russell back, and on today's video I am going to show you how to remove the intake manifold off of a Chevy 350. It's the 5.7 liters for those who are into the metric system. This happens to be on a 1989 Chevy K1500 pickup. The reason that we are removing this today is because I have a coolant leak, which is very common on these, right where the manifold meets the head on the front driver's side. This is not a hard job. It is a little bit of a pain. This happens to have throttle body injection. It's not carbureted. So what the first thing that you need to do is get the vehicle situated where you want it. The second thing that you need to do is to drain the coolant. If you want to keep your oil, I suggest you drain the oil out and put it in a suitable container for reuse, because when we take the manifold off, it's going to drop coolant down in the valley, which will get in the oil pan, and you don't want to run obviously the engine with any coolant in there. So that's what we're going to do first, and we'll be right back. Alright, so I went ahead and drained the coolant, and I also took my air hose and put air through the heater hose to force more coolant out of the block. I did not drain the oil. I'm going to try doing this without doing that, and I think it will have moved all the coolant below the level of where the intake is. So now I'm going to remove the air cleaner and air assembly to here to get everything out of the way. Alright, so I removed the air cleaner assembly. I also forgot to mention I removed the negative battery cable. So there's a lot of ways that you can go here. I think what I'm going to do next is I'm going to disconnect some of the wiring here, and I'm going to make sure to mark my wiring. There's a lot of electrical connections here that we're going to have to undo, and I'll do that and we'll be back. Alright, next I'm going to remove these two clips right here that hold the throttle cable and the transmission kickdown cable, and I'll just do that with a screwdriver. Alright, so I've removed the two clips, and then this cable right here I just popped off. So there's three of them total, 1, 2, 3. And now I'm going to need to remove these two fuel lines. Alright, so with the I didn't realize the camera wasn't recording. I took off the throttle body. There's three bolts, 14mm bolts, and it just comes right off. Make sure the gasket, you get the gasket, and then set this out of the way where it won't get damaged. And the only reason I removed that was because I could not get to that bolt there. That is a 14mm, and I'll get it with my impact gun. Okay, so that comes off. And now this computer, well, it's not a computer, but electronic assembly, and there is a wire loom connector underneath here. Now I got the tensioner loose, I got the arm loose. I need to remove this connection there. That connection right there is the one that they even make a special tool to remove, because when you try to, and I'm going to do this, I'm going to show you guys how to do this with it off the car. Alright, so I popped the cable here out here by depressing the two tabs on the top and the bottom. I just set it aside, and the reason I had to do that is to get this bolt out. And I guess there's another one, I can't see it, but this is one that holds the coil assembly on. Alright, so there's another bolt right here that I just, well, it's right there. But anyway, that's how the coil comes out. And now we're really starting to get some room in here, and we'll be back. Alright, so right there is another bolt that holds is a clamp that holds down the two fuel lines. Okay, so the next step, I removed the distributor cap and I marked all the plug wires. So I took the engine and rotated it to where it is at top dead center. That's at 0 degrees. And I have the valve cover off because I wanted to make sure both lifters were closed, and they are. So I marked put a paint mark on the distributor body where the rotor should point. See, it's exactly in line when it's at top dead center. And I have taken the bolt out of the distributor. And the next thing that we'll do is I will remove the distributor. Now, when you do this, the distributor is going to slightly rotate. Which is what it's supposed to do. So watch when I start pulling the distributor out. I'm going to just lift it up. See, it rotates counterclockwise when I'm pulling it up. So just pull it up like this, and out it comes. And there's a gasket on the distributor, so make sure that comes out with it. So I'm going to set this aside, and I'm not going to touch it at all. Alright, so I've got all the bolts out. So the only thing left to do is to lift the manifold. Just make sure everything's clear. The only thing is the pipe right there is a little close to the harness, but that should be all right. All right, guys, so here is where I'm at. Here's the mess of gasket that came off there. These are the factory original ones, and I spent several hours making sure that the surface is pretty much hospital clean. I wiped it down with acetone a couple times. I'll do it again tomorrow. I'm gonna go to the parts store in a minute because I'm losing light and I can't do much more work on here, so I'm going to get a new oil pressure sending unit. I've already got the intake gaskets. We've done a RTV silicone, the front and back rail. That's really the preferred method. I've got new valve cover gaskets. Oh, the intake manifold. I cleaned the mating surface on both sides, and I'm going to clean this manifold up, but not today. I'm going to show you guys tomorrow how to get this, what happens when this breaks, and then show you how to fix it permanently. And it will not be using this piece of garbage right here. Okay guys, so I'm going to show you how to replace this fitting. Now this fitting is a design defect. If you can go out on YouTube, and there's a zillion people that have problems with them. But anyway, I removed the pipe. This pipe, if you squeeze these two plastic tabs, it's supposed to pop out. This one's probably been in here since 1989, and I had to use some channel locks to pull it out, but it did come out. So if you're working with this on the truck, which you will be, if it won't come out, if you just don't want to waste a lot of time, just take a cut-off wheel and cut it off right here at the base. This fitting right here is 1 1/16. So the reason I cut the pipe off is because I'm going to use a socket to try to get this off. Okay, so it's 1 1/16. You can try to use a wrench on there. I don't think, because the distributor and everything, you're just not going to have enough. You'd have to try to use a crow's foot. You're not going to have enough room. So the best thing to do is to get this pipe out. If I recommend that you get rid of this entirely. I'm going to put a link to this in the description. This is what Chevy used to use, or GM used to use. This is just a 5/8 inch heater hose fitting. And I suspect they went to this quick connect, if you want to call it that, push lock, because it's easier, faster to assemble. There is a special tool that Lyle makes. I'll put this in the description. It is called the heater hose coupler remover. So I've already sprayed this with PV Blaster, which is what you'll do. Let it sit as long as you want. And we're just going to try to take this off. Now there is a slim chance that this will actually come out. It's probably going to shear off, and I'm going to have to step on this to get some leverage. Let me bring the camera in closer so you guys can see the carnage as it happens. I am very confident that it is going to break off, but there's always the chance, because I want to show you guys how to use the tool. So here we go. See, this thing is frozen. And that's what's going to happen. It's going to be frozen in the truck. So I'm going to take a hammer and give it some blows. You may or may not have enough room to do this in the truck. I don't believe this. I think it's actually going to come out. Let me make sure that this is sliding around. I don't want to get, this is getting out of the shot. So it is possible it's going to come off. Usually they'll start doing that and then they'll twist. I apologize. Wow. Okay. All right, this is very, very, this doesn't usually happen like this. Okay, it came out. Don't expect yours to come out. This is just cheap pot metal. So anyway, the way this tool works is that this should have sheared off. It normally, they break off right level with the intake, and you just take this, you hammer it inside with, which would be the threads, the inside of this, and then you take a 5/8 socket, and it just, it's like almost like an easy out. It's got teeth on there, and it'll grip on there. I can't believe that this actually, okay, well, can't believe it works. So I'm sorry I wasn't able to show you how to use the tool. But when we get the manifold cleaned up, we're going to be installing this with some thread sealant in this hole right here. This is disgusting. It's corroded. So anyway, all right guys, I will bring you guys back. I'm going to take this manifold to the car wash and pressure wash it. I wasn't going to do that. I'm not going to remove the thermostat housing or anything. I'm going to tape this up, and I'm going to clean both sides of it. This thing's disgusting. And then we'll be back. Okay, so here is where I'm at. I have completely cleaned all the mounting surfaces. Now when I say this needs to be clean, you need to clean it where it looks like a mirror, and then wipe it down with either lacquer thinner or acetone. You could use brake clean. I don't think that's as good. Acetone is probably the best thing you can do. It has to be spotless. I want you to take a 3/8 inch tap and run through every one of these holes where the bolts are going to go through, and then spray it out with brake cleaner and get your compressed air, blow it out. Now here's the manifold. I wasn't going to paint it, but I decided I had some paint left over, and I did it. New gasket here. The only thing I've got to do is install the water temperature, or the water outlet fitting, and then same thing with this. All the surfaces need to be absolutely hospital clean. Wipe it down with acetone. It's cheap. Go to Home Depot or hardware store and get you a bottle of acetone. Also, you need to make sure that every one of these bolts are clean. Now when I say clean, they need to look new. Okay, I've got a wire wheel. If you don't have that, you can do it by hand, but these need to be clean. All right, completely clean. And we're going to install, I'm going to put a little bit of thread sealant. It's Permatex thread sealant with Teflon, with PTFE. I'll show you that a little bit later. But you know, you don't want to have to do this job over. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get everything set up. I'm going to put the manifold on there, and I may try to do a time lapse. This is the acetone. This is a quart. I think it was like $6, but that's what you want to do to get everything clean. All right, so I'll be back. All right, so I have placed the intake gaskets in here. I've got just a tiny little dab of RTV, a little bit under there to hold the gasket down because it'll slip and fall into the valley. I've got some bolts in there just to keep it stable and in place, and I've already put the black RTV silicone. You need to do a 1/4 inch bead or a little bigger. That's what seals the back, and if this whole job is going to leak, that's 99% where it's going to leak. So you don't want it to do that. And this intake has to go underneath. And then straight down. Wow. All right, so I'm going to wrap this up for the day. I have followed the torque sequence in the Chevy manual. It torques to 35 foot-pounds, and had the brackets backwards, by the way. But anyway, I went around and torqued all 12 bolts. First I torqued them to about 15 foot-pounds, half of it, and then I went ahead and did it to 35 foot-pounds. So hopefully the 2 rails are sealed. That's always it would suck to have to redo this over, but that's usually what happens when if you don't get enough RTV on there, but I think I got more than enough. Anyway, I will see you guys on the next portion of this. All right, so here is where I'm at. I've got everything put back together. The assembly is just the reverse of the disassembly, and the only thing I haven't done is put the air cleaner on, and the reason is because I've got to set the timing, and I need to be able to get to the distributor to move it. I did have a little bit of a problem with the fitting. That fitting does not like that manifold. I don't know if the threads are off a little bit or what, but I've had to take that off, on and off several times, and put more thread sealant on there. So hopefully it's not going to leak. If it does leak, what I'm going to do, which is what I should have done when I had the manifold off, is to get a 1/2 inch NPT pipe tap and run through the holes, and maybe that would have corrected it. I don't know. The threads did not look corroded, but apparently maybe either that and or the thread on the fitting is not perfect. So anyway, But everything is hooked up, and we just need to start it up. All right, it's about 40 something degrees out here, and I'm going to go ahead and crank this up. So the only thing left to do is just to check the timing and adjust it if necessary, tighten the distributor down, put the air cleaner on, and we're done.